I hope you enjoyed and were blessed by your work in looking for contrast and comparisons in the book of Philemon. One thing I forgot to mention related to repetitions, and let me make that comment before I forget again, is that when you're looking for repetitions, I encourage you not to use Bible software to simply see how many times each word in a chapter or a book are listed. That might be useful at a later time when you're looking for repetitions, but when you're first looking for repetitions, it's much better simply to read through the chapter or passage or book, whatever you're studying, and see what the Holy Spirit points out to you, what kind of jumps out at you as a repetition, rather than using a computer. Now, it may be that later on you're thinking, like if it's a larger book, the book of Romans or a gospel, and you're thinking, I really think I remember that X was repeated a few times, but I don't remember and I don't have time to go back through the whole book again. Then you might could use some excuse me, some Bible software and to simply find out how often that one word was repeated. But don't just have a computer tell you, you know, every word that's in the thing, in the book or passage or chapter, and how many times they appear. That's not the best way to do repetitions, because remember, what we're trying to do is stay focused in the text. And so we want to be reading the text over and over again. Okay. Now you've identified contrast and comparisons in Philemon. I hope you found at least two. Um, so what I'd like you to do next is I'd like you to examine those contrasts and comparisons just as you examined your repetitions. And the questions for examining contrast and comparisons are identical, but I'll still go over them one at a time just to make sure. And they're pretty simple questions. And again, these are pump priming questions. If you think of other questions to ask, the goal is to discern what does the text say about this contrast, okay? So the first question is, who or what are being contrasted? Who or what are being contrasted? So just try to be as specific as you can about that. And then the second is the contrast present in the entire paragraph or chapter or book? To say that another way, is it an isolated incident? Does it only appear once, or does it appear more often than once in the book or chapter or passage? In this case, in the book of Philemon. And we're not trying to assign any meaning to whether it's only appears once or more than once, okay? We're only trying to observe whether or not it does, okay? And that's all we're trying to do, because we're still in the observation step. We're not in the interpretation step. For comparisons, the examined questions are the same. Who or what are being compared? And is this comparison present in the entire paragraph, chapter, book? Does it only occur once in one verse? Is the whole chapter intended to do the comparison? For an example, is the whole chapter about the comparison? So to rephrase it, how prevalent is the comparison, or in the case of contrast, how prevalent is the contrast? Okay, so I'd like you to go through now all the contrasts and comparisons that you have already identified in the book of Philemon, and I'd like you to examine those using these questions as your guide. Thanks. God bless.